She's not dead! The voice shattered the silence of the billionaire's funeral, echoing through the grand cathedral. Mourners froze, their polished shoes and black veils turning toward the ragged figure at the aisle. A homeless black man, clutching a battered backpack, stood against hundreds of powerful elites. Laughter rose, whispers spread, yet his trembling hands held something no one expected. Proof, not of madness, but of a truth that could tear the billionaire's legacy apart. This is the story of a funeral interrupted, of lies exposed, of a man no one believed, until he changed everything. Comment your city below. The morning air carried a strange weight over the city, as if even the clouds sensed the importance of the day. Black limousines lined the narrow streets leading to St. Matthew's Cathedral, where the funeral of billionaire magnate Charles Wentworth was about to begin. The world remembered him as a man of immense wealth, ruthless in business and untouchable in power. Reporters crowded outside, snapping photographs of high-profile guests as they stepped onto the marble steps. It was a display of prestige, wealth, and solemnity, an event meant to seal his legacy in grandeur. But away from the polished shoes and designer black attire, another figure lingered on the fringes of the crowd. His name was Isaiah Turner, a man with skin weathered by years of sleeping under bridges, his clothes frayed by rain and time. Most walked past him without a glance. To them, he was invisible, just another homeless black man on the streets of the city. Yet Isaiah carried something far heavier than the backpack slung across his shoulders, a secret that refused to die. For years, Isaiah's life had been a quiet struggle for survival. He rose with the sun, searching for food in trash bins behind restaurants, and settled at night on cardboard beneath flickering streetlights. Life had taught him to stay silent, to keep his head down. But silence weighed on him now, pressing harder with every toll of the church bells announcing Wentworth's farewell. He knew something the mourners inside the cathedral did not, something that would not only disrupt the carefully constructed image of the billionaire but also challenge the very idea of what was being buried that day. Isaiah adjusted his steps, shuffling closer to the gates as the crowd thickened. He was out of place here, but destiny had pulled him toward this moment. What the world saw as a funeral he knew as a lie. The question wasn't whether he would speak, it was whether anyone would listen. And deep down, Isaiah feared the truth he carried might cost him more than the streets ever had. Inside the cathedral, the grandeur was overwhelming. Golden chandeliers glowed against the vaulted ceilings, while a choir's somber hymns echoed through the cavernous space. Mourners filled every pew, politicians, CEOs, celebrities, all gathered to honor a man whose empire stretched across continents. At the front of the aisle, a mahogany casket draped in lilies rested like an untouchable monument. To most, this was the final chapter of Charles Wentworth's story. To Isaiah Turner, it was a stage set for the greatest deception of all. Isaiah's heart pounded as he lingered at the entrance. Security men in black suits scanned the crowd, their eyes sharp and unwelcoming. Every instinct told him to turn back, to disappear into the streets where he belonged. But the image he had carried for weeks burned in his mind. He could not let this lie be sealed in the ground. He pushed through the line of mourners, drawing irritated looks. His ragged coat brushed against sleek gowns and polished suits, earning him sneers and whispered insults. "Get him out of here," someone muttered, while another snickered, "Who let the trash wander in?" The sting of those words was familiar. Isaiah had lived a lifetime of being dismissed, disregarded, and disrespected. But today, their contempt only fueled his determination. When he reached the center aisle, he raised his trembling voice above the choir. "She's not dead!" The words sliced through the air, silencing the room. Heads turned, eyes narrowing. At first there was confusion. Who was he speaking about? Then came the laughter, cruel and mocking. "He's insane," someone whispered. "Throw him out!" demanded another. Security rushed forward, gripping Isaiah by the arms. But before they could drag him away, he shouted again, louder this time. "You're burying a lie! She's alive and I can prove it!" The cathedral erupted in chaos. Guests gasped, some covering their mouths in shock, others shaking their heads in disbelief. Cameras from the press turned toward the scene, capturing every second. The billionaire's widow, Eleanor Wentworth, sat frozen in the front pew, her face pale, her grip tightening on her black veil. Isaiah struggled against the guards, his voice raw with desperation. "You all think you know the truth, but you don't." He didn't just build his empire on greed, he built it on secrets. "And this one he couldn't bury." The room buzzed with speculation. Some mocked him outright, dismissing him as a delusional vagrant. Others leaned forward, unsettled by the conviction in his tone. For every sneer, there was also a flicker of doubt. Isaiah knew this was his only chance. If they silenced him now, the truth would die with him. The proof he carried, the one thing that could unravel the carefully staged illusion, rested in his worn backpack. And as the guards tried to force him toward the exit, he clutched the strap, ready to reveal it. The billionaire's funeral, meant to be a display of dignity and control, was unraveling into a scandal. And Isaiah, the man they had always ignored, was standing at its center, daring to expose what no one else would. The cathedral trembled with whispers, but Isaiah's voice cut through them all as he tore open his backpack. From within, he pulled a stack of photographs, faded, worn, but undeniable. He held them high for all to see, his arms shaking not from weakness, but from the weight of the truth. Gasps rippled through the pews as the images circulated, pictures of a woman unmistakably alive. Not just alive, but recent. Her face bore a striking resemblance to Eleanor Wentworth, yet younger, more fragile and undeniably real. It was the billionaire's first wife, long declared dead after a tragic accident. But the photographs told a different story. She was breathing, walking and hidden away. The widow's composure shattered. Eleanor's hand flew to her mouth as tears welled in her eyes. The crowd erupted, torn between disbelief and outrage. Some shouted for Isaiah to be removed, and others demanded answers. The media's cameras zoomed in, broadcasting every detail live to the world. Isaiah's voice cracked with raw power. "You're burying him with lies!" He silenced her to protect his empire, but she survived. And I found her. She trusted me because I was the only one who listened. Security froze, uncertain whether to silence him or let the storm unfold. The billionaire's empire, his legacy, his carefully guarded truth, was unraveling before their eyes. The funeral was no longer about grief. It was about revelation. And Isaiah, the man they had mocked, now stood as the only one with undeniable proof. Dear audience, where are you watching from? Drop your city name in the comments. The silence that followed was heavier than any hymn sung that morning. The photographs passed from hand to trembling hand, each pair of eyes widening as the reality set in. This was no delusion, no desperate act of a homeless man craving attention. This was truth breaking free. Isaiah stood at the center of it all. His clothes tattered, his voice hoarse, but his presence undeniable. For the first time in years, people weren't looking past him. They were listening. Reporters swarmed, questions flew, and the billionaire's family sat in stunned disbelief, their carefully constructed world collapsing under the weight of revelation. Eleanor Wentworth finally rose from her pew, her face streaked with tears. She didn't speak, but her silence was an admission more potent than words. The empire Charles had built was now tainted. His funeral had transformed into a public reckoning. The man once admired for power and wealth was now remembered for secrets, lies, and cruelty. Isaiah's proof did more than expose a billionaire's hidden sins. It forced society to face its own prejudice. Had anyone else spoken, perhaps the world would have believed sooner. But because Isaiah was homeless, black, and unseen, his truth had been dismissed until it could no longer be ignored. That day, the funeral ended not in closure, but in questions. Who else had been silenced? How many more lies had been buried with the powerful? Isaiah walked back into the streets with nothing more than his backpack, but he carried something greater than riches, vindication. The man who had once been invisible had made the world look at him, and through him, see the injustice they had long ignored. And so the question remains, how many more voices must be dismissed before we finally choose to listen? Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more powerful stories and new videos.